levelling up for me is about having a plan, about having a vision, about having a clear economic vision of how you want to rebalance the economy, how you want to reduce the gap between rich and poor, how you're going to tackle regional inequalities, boardroom excesses, how you're going to get real wages rising. It's about much more than simply moving a Whitehall department to the north or introducing free ports and stuff like that. And to be honest, then I don't think either party has necessarily grasped that at the moment. I think if you said to either party, like, how are we going to revive our industrial base, for example? How are we going to rehabilitate manufacturing in this country? How are we going to restore some of those thousands of blue-collar jobs and industries that we've lost overseas in recent years? How are we going to make ourselves more competitive? How are we going to get productivity and investment up? How are we going to build the houses that people need in this country? And it seems to me that neither party has really got the solutions. And until, frankly, the Labour Party comes up with a vision for that sort of thing that really resonates with the concerns of ordinary working class people, then it would be very complacent to assume it's going to win the next election. You cannot just rely on the Tories failing. You cannot just rely on the Tories becoming unpopular. You have to have a bold vision economically and also in terms of culturally, closing that cultural gap that has opened up widely between the Labour Party and working class communities in recent years. Those are the 2 points of focus I think the Labour Party needs to adopt, and I don't see much progress on either of them at the moment.
And Arlene, I want to talk about these sort of major conferences because they're often seen as real pivotal moments in leadership. But actually, you know, from your experience as First Minister of speaking at such conferences, do they make much of a difference?
Well, sometimes for those of us looking in at conferences, they can seem pretty dull. And I have to say that sounded pretty dull because, of course, what he was doing there at the start of his speech was reaching out to the different parts of his party and saying, oh, well done to X and well done to Y. And we've taken the council and we only had one councillor there in the past. And so he's really trying to talk to his members. Meanwhile, all of the press are there looking for the little bit of a speech that's going to have relevance to the wider public. And of course, that has been already trailed because he's talking about levelling up and he's talking about the fact that the Tories aren't going to deliver on levelling up. But actually, the Tories have the power to deliver levelling up, as you know, Diana, because in the Internal Market Act that has now been in place for I think it was 2019, although I stand to be corrected on that. They have the power to act even in devolved administrations if they believe that they can act in a way which would be good for the citizens of that area. So they can act in Scotland, they can act in Northern Ireland and in Wales, and indeed right across England. So they need to use those powers. They need to identify, as Paul says, where the gaps are, what do we need to do, what intervention is needed to help that particular area. Because I always go back to the fact that if the union is to mean anything, the union of the United Kingdom is the union has to work for all parts. No matter where you live in the United Kingdom, you should be able to have the same access to services and be economically viable as any other part of the union. So that's why levelling up is important. I know it's a vision, but we need to start implementing the vision now and to see it making a real difference right across the UK.